creepy last words people said right before dying. A nice old lady told a CNA that she wanted to wear all white. When asked why, she said the man in black is here. She looked in the corner of the room. The CNA looked, but there was no one there. That's when the nurse came into the room. They asked her to describe what she was seeing, and she said he's in all black, and he's got a top hat on. And then she whispered, and his eyes are red, while her eyes moved across the room to directly behind the CNA, like she was watching him move closer to them. She died later that night, but it was unexpected. That room creeped the nurse and the CNA out for a long time after that.
Okay, so I'm just gonna come right out and say it. The creepiest thing ever, probably in the history of what has happened so far in my haunted house, officially happened last night. Officially, 100%. So far, nothing can top this one. So, my fiance and I were laying in bed, going to sleep. Great British Baking Show is obviously playing in the background. Nothing else can relax me more. And he's like, stop taking the covers, stop pulling the covers off me. Mind you, I'm pretty much asleep. I am not moving. I am a log at this point. So I scooch my boot all the way to the other side of the bed, so where we are not touching, there is no way he can tell me that I'm pulling the covers off of him. So he turns the TV off. We are now falling asleep in silence, and out of nowhere, literally nowhere, at the same exact time, we both hear, Mom, Mom. Excuse me, I am not a mother. We both heard it. And it was coming from the bottom, like where your feet are, like that part of the bed. So I'm literally at a loss for words. The only thing I do know is that around the 1920s, 1930s, there was a fire in this home, in my house, that a family was in, and I've read that they did not make it out. So, like, I don't get it.
This video just came out and people are freaking out about it. A woman moved into her new house a few months back and decided to install high-resolution baby monitors above her baby's crib. One evening, while her and her husband were out with their baby, she received a notification on her phone. She saw that it was the baby monitor app notifying her that a face had been detected. Thinking somebody was in her home, she frantically pulls up the notification to see this.
So I look at my phone and this is what I see. What is that?
Plain as day, a face being picked up in real time in her baby's crib. She notes in her TikTok video that there are no dolls in her crib, and the face in the video looks nothing like her baby. The creepiest part about this one is that this was the only video on her app that did not allow her to play it back. You can't tell me that this doesn't creep you the hell out.
A face, right? Like, that looks like hair, but this is clearly a face, and it's not my baby.
Was this an alien caught on camera? A man is driving down the road when a humanoid creature darts in front of his vehicle. The creature has a grayish colored body and a large head, resembling descriptions of gray aliens.
About 5 years ago, my husband and I went to visit his grandma. Big, beautiful 2-story house. I was going to head upstairs to put some pajamas on and saw a woman walk across the top of the stairs. It was only my husband, young daughter, and his grandma in the house, and whoever I saw wasn't Granny. I went in the living room and told them what I saw, and his grandma goes, "Yeah, that's Lori. She visits a lot." Lori was my husband's mom who died when he was 11. I was so freaking spooked. After that, I barely slept the rest of the time we were there.
I bought my first house in 2003, and was over the moon. Shortly after moving in, 2 of my neighbors began joking with me about the ghost in my house. Well, I thought they were joking, so I just played along pretending I had seen one and it was no big deal. Well, as time went on that summer, I met more and more of my neighbors and they all brought up the same topic. Finally, an elderly woman on the block who was quite kind and friendly told me story after I'd asked her. I knew she wasn't going to screw with my head, which is why I asked in the first place. Turned out the previous owner purchased the home and never lived there because she said it was haunted. Sounds in the night of footsteps and sobbing, and glimpses of a man sitting in the kitchen covered in blood. One of my neighbors helped with the renovations of the house and said that he was putting up drywall when he felt something lift up his dreadlocks. Though I've had paranormal experiences before, it had been years, and by then I just chalked it up to night terrors. One day I went to a small neighborhood video store to rent a movie. I had to fill out a form with my demographic data, and then my credit card info. The owner of the store looked at the form and said, "Oh my God, you live in that house." I asked her what she meant and she explained that her former employee had committed suicide in my house. She came to the house as soon as she'd heard, but the house had been taped off by police as a potential crime scene. She told me that he had just moved into the house with his partner and called his mom because he wanted to invite her over to meet his partner and come out to her. This was in the early 90s when being gay was a big deal. His mother already knew he was gay, because he bought a house with a man and disowned him right over the phone. That same week he received a letter from an HIV testing center stating he had tested positive for HIV. This is when HIV was a death sentence. He then sat at the kitchen table, ate a bowl of cereal, and shot himself in the head with a revolver. Since then, she has had multiple paranormal experiences in the store, with videos flying off shelves and even levitating off shelves. The most I have experienced is sounds at night, sounds of Cheerios being poured into a bowl, one don't eat cereal, and sounds of sobbing in the kitchen. I often awaken to both. I remember my grandmother saying, "When the dead come to you, they want something, perform an act of charity in their name and pray for them." So I did. I sat down at the kitchen table one night and lit a candle and told him that each night I would recite a novena prayer for him before a lit candle. On the 9th night of the first novena to Saint Anthony, patron saint of lost souls, I heard uncontrollable sobbing. I felt a strong presence of grief and despair, and the sound of hyperventilating breathing, as though someone could not catch their breath. I sat in the presence of this knowing it was not malignant, but rather a connection of intimacy and compassion of which he was in need. For 45 days I said a novena prayer before a lit candle for his soul, and had a mass said in his name. A few times I had awakened to feel his presence standing over my bed, but knew it was not a malignant presence. This still happens from time to time, but less and less frequently.
Braylon? What's happening with your car?
Is this a skinwalker on his roof?
My husband and I live in a 100-year-old house. It's always been a little creepy, like hearing people talking in another room and going in and there's no one there. But, a couple of years ago we had two really good hauntings that totally convinced me the paranormal is real. The first thing that happened was when I was sleeping on the living room floor in front of the TV because I hurt my back, and was trying to get it to a comfortable position. I woke up at 4 a.m. and I heard the mantle clock chime 4. I'm sure I was awake because I watched TV for a few minutes. I heard my husband walk into the room behind me, pick up the comforter and spoon behind me with his arm thrown over my waist. After a couple of minutes it was like his arm weighed a ton and he was throwing a lot of heat. Just about then I heard my husband start snoring, in the bedroom. I was like oh shit, freaking terrified. So I counted to 3 and threw the cover off and ran. Woke him up and we looked, there was no one else in the house. I know there was something there though. The second time we were both asleep in the bedroom at about 4 a.m. again. My husband says he woke up to hear two little girls talking. He could hear that they were playing jacks. He could hear the ball bouncing and the metal sound of the jacks on the wood floors. One of the little girls says to the other one, "Watch this," and she goes, "Mama, Mama," and I sat straight up still asleep and said, "What baby? Once a mom, always a mom, right?" The little girls laughed because it worked. So he kind of shook me awake and I looked at him then at the doorway where the little girls were. They looked real except their outlines were wavering and they were almost black and white in coloring. They saw us both looking and laughed. Then the older girl grabbed the littler one's hand and they walked right through the bedroom wall and disappeared.
With its old Tudor-style frame, the Holt Arms pub has stood at the foot of Billinge Hill in Wigan since 1721. Inside you'll find low ceilings, cosy lighting and a few ghosts. The cold stone cellars were used as an overflow mortuary in days gone by, storing the recently deceased. One tale from this era relays how a barmaid heard sobbing from the cellars, so crept down to investigate. She seen a man crouched on the stairs crying that he was dead. She told him to get his head together and come up for a pint. Making her way up, she turned round, but he was gone. She went back down calling him and when reaching the far corner, seen his long dead body resting on the stone.
Sitting in my red dress, waiting at the bar. I know that I am running out of favors, but can you pick me up? I could catch a bus, but I'd rather be in your car. I remember when we were kids and we'd sneak out with your parents' vodka. Laying grass fields, watch shooting stars, yeah. We were collecting memories, oh. You were my first love, but my one and only. That warmth is coming back around, oh. Flames are sparkling, our eyes connected, radiating the young romance, oh. Now the wildfire inside our hearts is starting to align.